Oh no, it's already September. I need to talk something school related, preferably a Jack Black movie from 2003 that's also called School of Rock. School of Rock, the world's easiest movie to confuse with Schoolhouse Rock. Jack Black plays Dewey Finn, a failed musician who's about to get kicked out of his apartment. Then the local prep school goes, you know what, I'm bored, I need a crisis, and so they have a teacher shortage. Dewey decides to help so he can get some extra rent money, but the problem is he knows less about teaching than someone who doesn't know how to teach. So when he gets there, he just gives the class recess until he sees them in music class, after which he secretly tries to train them to compete in Battle of the Bands. Oh wait, I knew I forgot something. He also steals the identity of his roommate, Ned Schneebly, because he's a substitute teacher. This movie was made on a $35 million budget, and then it grossed $131 million in the box office, so it really made its money back and then some. And the critics gave it a consensus of pretty good, but I don't actually remember any of this because I was a 2-year-old. A couple years later, my dad found this movie in the store and he decided to buy it because he thought it looked pretty good. And my family has never been the same since. Pretty much half of the stuff we say to each other is quotes from this movie. So this may sound a bit biased, but I happen to like this well-liked and popular movie. Also, it's on Netflix, go watch it. But what exactly makes it so good? Common sense and logic. I think a lot of it has to do with Jack Black. The role of Dewey Finn might as well have been written on his birth certificate. You just look at him and go, yeah, that looks like a guy who would commit identity theft. Joking aside, this is the most Jack Black role ever, and you can tell that he's having a lot of fun doing it. He's gone on record stating that this was his favorite role he's ever played. It helps that he's really passionate about classic rock. When Mike White wrote the script for Jack, he was a bit nervous about the feedback he was gonna get, but it mostly ended up being, I think we should mention Motorhead in this section. I think it's also worth mentioning that Mike White plays the role of Dewey's roommate, and when he was writing the script for the movie, he was actually roommates with Jack Black in real life. But oops, I digress. The film's very well written. It takes a concept that's very simple and kind of dumb and makes it into something exceptional. Let's start with Dewey. They easily could have made him unlikable considering the fact that he commits identity theft to get a job as a substitute teacher for money. Or maybe they could have had him yell at all the kids as a joke or something, you know, for the humor. What makes the former work is that he takes the job not out of greed, but out of desperation, because he's about to get kicked out of his apartment because he can't pay rent, and he grows to genuinely care about the kids too. Sure, one of the first things he says to Principal Mullins is that if a kid gets out of line, he'll smack him in the head. That is almost exactly what he says. But over the course of the movie, he's able to develop their skills a lot, and when they struggle with self-confidence, he gives motivational talks. And when he's inevitably interrogated by the police, all he can say is how much he cares about the kids and how awesome they are. A lot of the humor comes from the way he interacts with the class and how he tries to cover up his tracks with everyone else. Like when he talks about what he calls the man, which is pretty much any authority figure, like Principal Mullins. Then he encourages the class to just hurl insults at him, which includes some of my first exposure to profanity. Then he rants about how the man ruined his life, and right before he finishes, Principal Mullins walks in. Remember, she's the man. So you'd think with a scene like that Principal Mullins is the villain, right? No, not even. Actually, he kinda takes her out on a date to negotiate a field trip to Battle of the Bands, so the School of Rock can perform their song. But of course he can't say that, so he just calls it a Mozart concert. Mullins then talks about how she's flattered and stunned that anyone would go on a date with her, which then spirals into her venting about how, in becoming a principal of a prep school, she's never allowed to let loose or make any mistakes ever, or else her career is over. Not only does this humanize Principal Mullins, but it also adds some more stakes to the story, putting extra pressure on Dewey. Oh yeah, and then police interrogation, but you know all this stuff. Then, eventually, through the power of friendship and lying, the School of Rock eventually makes it to Battle of the Bands. The movie is really good at building this up, and then they do a great job, and then they lose. Wait. Yeah, they do lose. Then they start an after-school club, the end. In conclusion, I like this movie, go watch it.